Welcome to the Bible Guy and your series on the Gospel of Mark. We've reached Mark chapter 15 today. Two chapters left to go. Mark chapter 15. It's too easy to just follow the crowd, isn't it? Isn't it just all too easy to just say what people want you to say, to go along with what the majority of people think? And that's what we're going to see today in Mark chapter 15. We're going to see it with the Roman governor Pontius Pilate, who we may have very well heard about, who really wanted to please the crowd and took the actions that he took. I don't know about you, but I find this difficult my whole life. I've often been a people pleaser. I've wanted to do and say things that would make me more popular with people. I cared too much about how other people felt about me. And I've had so many times in my life, even in the last day or two, even today actually, I've had a few moments where my kids have done something or said something, or there's been a conversation I've had about my kids, not necessarily a bad thing, but I find myself being sort of preoccupied with, well, what does that teacher think about me? What does that person think about how I bring up my kids, why they present this way, why they come across that way? And I remember as I was growing up, my mom would so often seem, at times anyway, sort of very occupied with whether how the world perceived her in terms of how she brought up her kids and so on. But I have had good victories in this area though myself as well. There have been times where I remember when I was being taught as an adult education, I was being taught mathematics. I remember there was a teacher there, an older gentleman. I remember he taught the class, but people didn't like his teaching. And we all met together with the head of the faculty. And I remember at that particular time, people were saying and shouting in very negative things about him, and it even started to get personal about him, about what he wore or how he spoke. And I was sitting there for a minute or two and it kept going and no one was stopping it and no one was saying anything about this guy, about his teaching. It got very personal. And I just couldn't stop. I was like, guys, what on earth are you doing here? This has got nothing to do with his ability to teach maths. This is derogatory. This is wrong. And I remember I didn't care what they thought of me. I really didn't. I was just driven by justice. And that was a victory in the area for me. But we may have this where we become very occupied with what do people think of us? What are they going to think about me when I say this, when I do this? Just a couple of things that might help us at the end with that. But let's get to the story in Mark chapter 15. Very early in the morning, the chief priests with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin reached a decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Are you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate. Yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, aren't you going to answer? See how many things they're accusing you of. And if you read on in verse 9, it says, do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate, to the Jews. And knowing it was out of envy, verse 10, that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. So Pilate knew that the Jews had handed Jesus over out of envy. And it says many times, and it's in every account, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where it says he knew it was out of envy, and he knew that Jesus had done nothing wrong. And it even said that his wife had had a dream and warned Pilate, release this man. That we know this man's innocent. His wife knew he's innocent. She had dreams about it. He was given ample warning. God had even given him a warning. This guy is innocent. And Pilate also knew, and he was no friend of the Jews, he also knew they've handed him over out of jealousy. And even later on, and what Pilate responded when they started shouting, crucify him, Pilate said, well, why? What crime has he committed? But they shouted all the louder, crucify, crucify. It's just to say for a moment, this Roman governor in no way wanted to please the Jews. He had Barabbas there. He could have released him, or he could have had him crucified or killed. He was an insurrectionist, like a terrorist against the Roman province, and he was somebody he easily could have crucified. But he released a man that he thought was innocent, that he thought had done nothing wrong. And the reason he did it was ultimately fear of the uprising of the Jews, but predominantly in verse 15 it says, wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them, yet Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Pilate, in the other account, as you may have heard, he often washes his hands as a sign of, I'm innocent of this man's blood. His blood is not on my hands. It's not my fault. I know he's innocent, but I'm going to have him crucified anyway because you're chanting about it. It's your fault. Is it really their fault? Obviously, from our perspective, it's both their faults. But Pilate doesn't get off. He still has the authority to either crucify or release Jesus. But because of the crowd, because of fear of the crowd, wanting to please the crowd, he has Jesus crucified. And you think, what a travesty. He had a decision to make: the truth, what he knew to be true, or go along with the crowd here. He picks to go along with the crowd. And you think, this is a travesty. And we say this today because it's something that we can all struggle with. Struggle with just wanting to be popular in people's eyes and not dealing with the fallout that comes from speaking the truth. Now, we've got to speak the truth. As it says in the Bible, we got to speak the truth, but we got to do it with love and respect. We've got to do it in the right way. But it is hard sometimes to speak the truth. It's hard to want to be honest. And some things that have helped me in doing this, it definitely gets easier as I get older, is sometimes thinking, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if this teacher does think this about me? If I'm authentic and real about myself, about my life, what is the worst case scenario? What am I actually afraid of? What am I worried about? Why does it matter to me so much if this person likes me or doesn't like me? And so often we don't even realize that people think about us less than they really do. I know one of the things I often struggle with when I'm out sharing my faith is I like to share my faith, but I struggle to do it if I share with someone, but there's someone else walking past who hears me and I don't get the chance to defend myself for that person, and I'm going away thinking they think I'm some sort of a Jesus freak, Bible basher, and I'm not going to get the chance to explain that I'm actually quite down to earth and I can have an interesting conversation with you. Things that I feel worried about. But as I say, what's the worst that can happen? Why does it really matter to me so much what this person thinks of? And another thing that helps me is thinking about people who are just genuinely very honest and they themselves worry that I have a negative view of them. Some friends in the church are very, very honest people, and I do nothing but care about them when they share their struggles with me. When they show weakness and vulnerability, it only makes me more endeared to them. When they show vulnerability and weakness, when they don't try to just say all the right things and put all the things across the right way. So this is definitely something we can all struggle with. It's all too easy to simply follow the crowd. The consequences for Pilate, the consequences of following the crowd is it reduces the truth. It suppresses the truth. It suppresses the truth. It means that the truth is not followed, and there are consequences in our lives from doing that. So I really pray that this thinking about Pilate today and seeing the consequences in his life and some of the things I shared can help us. What do you struggle with in terms of wanting to just follow the crowd? Please drop me any thoughts you have on that, if that is something you struggle with, or if you find things that you find that actually help you out as well. Really appreciate you tuning in today. Please hit the like button if you've liked this. Please share it on to help other people who struggle with this as well. Please subscribe to That Bible Guy, and let's get his word out there.